want to thank you all again for your time and attention. For all those people who are watching online, we appreciate you contributing. If you do have any questions for us or for any of the speakers, please feel free to share them. Do it through the chat, which is on the tab, and we'll make sure to relay those questions that you have to the speaker as you present them. I have the privilege of presenting our next speaker, who is Marichel Mejia, who's working with Student Action with Workers. And their work was pretty, to be honest, I'm from an urban center. I'm Puerto Rican. A lot of the issues she's going to talk about, I'm not very familiar with, and I had to educate myself before I would, approach a person of this caliber and with this information, because I knew it was critical to the core to caring for our communities, and that's the main reason we invited her today to speak to us, because there are many Latinos who are suffering and struggling in terms of getting access and equity, who reside on farms in rural communities, and that's the main reason we brought her here to help educate us and enlighten us on the issues that they're facing. So please, without further ado, please help bring her with a round of applause and show her some LMSA love.
How's everybody? Wow. Hello. How's everybody doing this morning? Thank you, Raymond. Ray, I suppose, for that introduction. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the Latino Medical Student Association for inviting me here to speak today. I'll give a little intro about myself before I continue with the presentation. As Ray mentioned, my name is Marichel Mejia. I come from Minnesota, graduated from McAllister College, and pues vengo de padre panameño y madre gringa. So a little mix of cultures here. And what I'm going to be talking about today in my presentation are farm workers. And as you can see, the title is Food for Thought, Medical Access and Occupational Health Risks Among America's Farm Worker Population. So, today in my presentation, just to give you guys an outline of what I'll cover. First, a general introduction to farm workers. If some of you are not familiar with who farm workers are and what they do, I'll be able to provide that information. Occupational health issues that are associated with farm work, barriers to health access that a lot of farm workers encounter, policy recommendations for both the federal and the state level, and also actions that we as individuals can take starting today once we leave the room. And also before I begin, I'd just like to mention that Ray was passing around little strips of paper. On each of these strips of paper is a quote from a farm worker. And those of you who have the pink slips of paper, if you would so kindly read your quote when it appears on the slide of my presentation, that would be great. I thought it was very important. Unfortunately, since I could not have any farm workers with me here today to speak for themselves, I thought it was very important that their voice is still heard and that they are present here with all of us. So, we're going to start with just this simple, quick question. Where does my food come from? We all like to enjoy oranges, apples, grapes, lettuce, peppers. Just exactly how does it get from the tree or in the ground or on the vine to the grocery store or on our dinner plates at night? Where does it come from? How does it all transpire? Well, how it happens is there's a very key labor force involved in this process. And this labor force is farm workers. But who are farm workers? Essentially, farm workers are the very hardworking men and women and even children who migrate throughout the country or work seasonally, cultivating, irrigating, and harvesting the fruits and vegetables that we all like to consume. They're not farmers out in Iowa with a 40-acre plot, but rather hired hands that work in the U.S.'s large-scale agricultural industry, or in many ways, open-air factorized fields. And I'll talk about the occupational health risks associated with this later on. To get an idea of the scale of the number of farm workers, there are about 85% of all fruits and vegetables produced in the U.S. are hand-picked by farm workers. And that's a lot. And it is estimated that there are over 3 million farm workers working here in this country. For some demographics on farm workers, just a little introduction, 78% are foreign born, with slightly over 75% being from Mexico. So the majority are of Mexican origin, but there's also considerable Haitian and also increasing Central American populations. It's a relatively young workforce. The average age is about 33 years old, and according to a 2005 survey, 53% of farm workers are undocumented. I've also seen other studies, or several other studies, that say it's higher than that, upwards of 75%, but it's safe to say that slightly over the majority are undocumented. And 13% of farm workers have completed less than 3 years of schooling, and the average education level is about 6th grade, or at least in the form of traditional schooling that has taken place. Farm workers also do not make that much money. The average annual income for a farm worker is $11,000 a year.